All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Money Lab live broadcast on YouTube Live. We haven't started the actual podcast yet. We always do this every single week. We start on the YouTube Live so you can get a chance to take a glimpse and give people a chance to sign on. We got the beautiful Tara Klien here sitting here as our guest. And we have some really cool content coming your way. So in case you're hearing some weird construction types of noises in the background, that's because for some reason in the Riviera Village today, they are doing something like they're tearing up the concrete in the streets or whatever. Did you see any of that coming in?
No, now I'm like really curious.
I'm curious what that sound is. Like, it sounds like they're grinding up the streets.
If it was something coming from our Sotheby's office downstairs, I would just call. Be like, "Excuse me."
Right. So just in case you in case you guys didn't catch that, Vista Sotheby's is the new home for Tara Klien. She used to be. So we're going to talk about all that. But right now we're about to start the show. So stay around, stay tuned, and we're going to go ahead and get started on the actual podcast itself. So if you're not watching YouTube, you're going to be listening on the podcast. So here we go. Oh my God, that construction is
it's driving you crazy more than anybody else.
It is. All right, here we go.
Okay.
All right, welcome to the Money Lab live podcast, episode number 46, How to Succeed in Spite of Fear. All right, welcome back to another live broadcast of the Money Lab podcast from the Six Figure Academy. I am your host, Wei Hong, and this is the podcast where we give you tips, strategies, and interviews with other entrepreneurs on how to create that ultimate six-figure entrepreneur lifestyle, free of bad money stories, money anxiety, and stress so that you can monetize your dreams and execute your genius. Now, if you haven't already downloaded our free book From Money Anxiety to Six-Figure Mastery, make sure you go to http:// I don't know why I keep saying that because nobody even does that anymore. Go.thesixfigureacademy.com and get it there. It's the perfect complement to all the things we discuss on this show. And quite frankly, it could change your life. Now, if you are joining us live today and you're not on YouTube Live over here on the camera, in case you're watching us, make sure you get on Spreaker.com or download the Spreaker app on your mobile device and search for the hashtag #TheMoneyLab so that you can join us in the chat room and ask questions, interact with us and our guest, and or even request a specific topic to discuss that will help support you in your quest for the ideal six-figure lifestyle. Now, while you're there, subscribe so that you don't miss an episode and you can catch us every week. For all other ways to find us, go to thesixfigureacademy.com/radio for all the details. And if there's something that you love about what you hear on this episode today that you know could help someone, and you definitely will today with our guest, and someone that you care about, remember, sharing is caring. So share this show to that person. Okay. So for those of you that haven't been following me, I actually just got back from Austin, Texas. And here I was going to Austin, Texas, thinking I was going to go to the South, because it's warmer. And so I went there completely unprepared for 29 degrees, sub 30 degree weather. Now, I know some of you say, well, look, if you go to the East Coast, it's like negative something degrees. Yeah, I know. But you're talking to a spoiled SoCal beach baby. And going there was, oh my God, I didn't even want to leave the hotel room. So part of me was like, oh, Austin, I've never been there. And a part of me was like, oh, I don't want to go outside. It's too cold. So anyway, well, before I want to introduce our guest so we can get right to it, because there's so much cool things that she's going to be able to bring to the table. Simply because she has such a fun, diverse kind of path and journey to bring her to where she is today. And there's so many cool. I've known Tara Klien from currently Vista Sotheby's, and I've known her for a while now, and we've had an opportunity to connect on a variety of different levels. And she is, every time I talk to her, it gets more and more impressive, just learning more about her past. I mean, just today, I thought I knew everything there was, and then she brings up something else, and I'm like, wait, I didn't know about that. So she's one of those individuals that was successful in the corporate world, successful as an entrepreneur, and despite that, continued to to kind of like forge her own path, trying out different things. And it's not one of those things where, you know, how you hear about people who try something and they're not so good at it. And they try something else until they find something that they're good at. Sounds like thus far, Tara's been good at everything that she's tried. And it was almost more of a question of which one that she's going to finally land on. And I think she's finally found something that she's able to land on, because it not only serves her from a monetary standpoint, but also serves her from a soul quenching, thirst quenching, you know, kind of like heart center type of thing. And again, for those of you who aren't watching the YouTube live, if you hear that sound in the background, which we're hearing, and like Tara says, it's probably bothering me more than anybody
right.
else, but there's some construction going on outside and I have no idea what it is. And it sounds like they're tearing up the road and doing something. Hopefully it's a good thing. Now I can drive and we can drive. But anyway, welcome to the show, Tara.
Thank you, Ray. I'm so excited to be here. Any amount of time with you on these subjects is a gift.
Oh, no. And I'm sure you have a lot of gifts that you're going to share, because I'm so excited. We talked about this for a long time, about getting you on the show because of everything that you've gone through in your life. And for a period of time, our show wasn't structured in just the right way. But this year, it's a perfect complement to what it is that you're going to bring to the table today. So tell me a little bit. I know I probably butchered up your bio and how, and stuff, but tell me a little bit more about where you are right now. And then we can tell people, and all the great things and all the accomplishments you made, where you are right now, so people can be even more impressed talking about where you came from. Okay. So who is Tara Klien right now? What is she doing right now?
Well, currently I am a realtor in I specialize
a successful realtor. Six-figure plus realtor.
Yes. Six-figure plus realtor in Southern California. My office is located in Manhattan Beach. I'm with Vista Sotheby's. After being with a small boutique company in Manhattan Beach, I transferred over to Vista Sotheby's, and I love being an entrepreneur, but having the brand behind me, Sotheby's, which has been a bit of a game changer for me. Prior to that, I spent 10 years as an in-house legal recruiter for some of the biggest law firms in the world. Wow. And, I remember secretaries and things like that saying to me, I work for the benefits. And, you don't realize how important things like benefits and 401ks are until they're gone. But
So what were some of the benefits, that people were working for?
Honestly, stability. Really, it was interesting. You're around smart people, but, most of my, career, first 20 years of working was more about is this a stable job? What are the benefits? The salary, did I like what I was doing was pretty low on the list.
Low on the priorities.
Yes. it got lower and lower. When I got out of college.
Oh, it got even lower.
Yeah. Because when I got out of college, I had a great corporate job and in insurance, it paid a lot. This is early 90s. And I didn't really appreciate that then. I thought it was boring, but in the end, I was taking clients to concerts and doing a lot of socializing. And I left that to go into the entertainment industry, which I was not in for very long. It just wasn't. I was got a job in the mailroom at a talent agency. And,
okay, cool. I wanted to make sure that you made it clear, what kind of entertainment you were doing.
Oh, yes. I was in the mailroom at United Talent Agency.
Right, because you have to make that clear, because for those of you who are watching YouTube, you'll see a picture and said this beautiful girl, and it's like, oh, what entertainment are you talking about? Is she the talent or no, she was behind the scenes. Okay, cool.
So, and then it just, after I left the stability of the law firm, it shook me, because the thing, I had taken a class at UCLA Extension on how to make it in Hollywood. I don't just jump, but so, and then when that really didn't work out the way I thought it was, it kind of shook me. And then I sort of went on a journey of trying a lot of different things. And, I looked at it as a negative thing for a very long time, which, not having a lot of confidence in any profession is not a good thing. But somebody once said to me, well, did you ever look at it as you're just good at a lot of things, which is what you said today. And it's really hard to choose. So it kind of changed my mindset.
Yeah. People don't realize that for those, I struggle with that too, in terms of kind of the same ways. Like if I want to do something, I fully immerse myself and make sure that I do it right and succeed at it before I move on.
Right.
And like you were saying, it gets to a point, it's almost like a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Right.
Because there are some people that have the ability to be multi-talented. And I'm almost kind of, there are a lot of super successful people that pride themselves in not being multi-talented. They're very focused. They know what they're good at, and they just forge on the path. One of my clients' son, I mean, he just knew he was going to make movies when at the age of 9. And that's all he knows, and that's all he does. And he doesn't try to be anything else. So there's something to be said about that too. So, a lot of people say, well,
a lot to be said. I mean, people, I'm not, my friends who happen to know exactly what they wanted to do out of college, or, I have a best friend who's a stand-up comic and has been making fun of people since she's in the 1st grade. And
making fun of people.
Imitating people. And she was imitating our teachers, and she's written books. And, she spent a few months in a corporate job and was like, and she's been a very successful, but she knew.
Right.
And if you don't know what you want to do, it's a little bit of a different
path, right?
Yes.
Would you say that was your biggest challenge as you entered the workforce, or maybe even in life? I mean, as a child growing up, I mean, what do I major in? What do I study?
Correct.
I mean,
I avoided math. Like, I probably would have wanted to be a business major, but I took I was afraid of the math component. It wasn't my strongest subject. So I, took communications and things like, you just don't really, you kind of follow what people are doing. And, I feel like education is sort of wasted on the youth. Like I'd love to go back to college now. I would know exactly what I wanted to study and things like that.
Yeah. It's so inspiring and to hear that from you, because a lot of what my path is in the work that I do is to help kind of, learn from what you and I have probably gone through in life, and then find a way to kind of create a process that helps kids not have to have the same types of abilities and skills and not go through that. So you went through the corporate path, and then when you came out, did you jump right into real estate, or what was the next step after that? I'm super honest, as most of you, if anyone I know is listening, but I left my last law firm job, and, it was the best salary I'd made in that career. I left it over personal reasons, didn't really actually think. It was more of an emotional decision not to work there anymore. And I kind of didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I would get another job, because at that point I had ever not gotten a job I had interviewed for. It went on that I didn't, but then the economy tanked and recruiting departments were getting smaller, and I didn't really know what to do. And one of the things I did do that was very smart is I went to go work at a store that was super successful in retail. I needed somewhere to go, and something to do. Yeah, and I loved it, but so I had a purpose. And then I tried a few different things, and I even started my own Klein legal search and had what I call a one-hit wonder. I had the tools. It wasn't really what I wanted to do, but it just seemed, again, I've always been a bit of a rule follower, people pleaser. It seemed like the most logical thing to do. To start a business, or to start that business. I knew a lot of lawyers. I had relationships with other big established headhunting companies, and I had a one-hit wonder. I moved one group of lawyers with someone who worked for a big headhunter firm, and that I knew kind of going in, and built the business around that. But I'm not a cold caller, and I spent 10 years trying to retain lawyers. And usually when you're a headhunter, you're cold calling to find out who doesn't like their job that day and is willing to. So it just didn't fit to my personality. But I spent money. I had beautiful business cards. I spent money on all the fun marketing things. And then, truth be told, I, put money aside to start real estate. And I did well in it, but I was so like putting the money away. So I was killed in taxes. So that was, and then, so I went into real estate with a very, very thin cushion. Yeah, because of all the taxes and everything.
Yeah.
Did you know going into the business that was gonna hit you on the back end in terms of?
No, I did not at all. I mean, I can tell you if in my real estate career, I've managed my tax. I always have money to pay my taxes. I've done it right.
Well, you learned it.
I do learn from some of my mistakes. Some I repeat again and again. But no, I think, no, I did not. And I didn't really think much about it. I thought maybe I would go then work for this big headhunting firm. And actually, they didn't hire me. And that was sort of a blessing in disguise. That was the first kind of disappointment. And actually in hindsight, the reason they didn't hire me was they had sort of a issue with people that were in-house recruiters like myself. We were great with people, but they weren't doing as well on the cold calling and, sort of the grinding part of it. And, I was upset at the time, but they did me a favor.
Yeah.
That would have been just another thing I tried and was done with.
So when you say one hit wonder, you actually created a successful, and it's interesting because I'm listening to you talk about all these different things that you went through, and especially that businesses, most entrepreneurs, they're out there, whether consciously or unconsciously, looking to solve a problem. So you probably noticed that there was a problem out there that needed something better.
Correct.
And you stepped into that, and it sounded like you said, okay, well, there's a better recruiting methodology.
Right.
Here. And that's why that quote unquote one hit wonder. I mean, there was a process there that maybe you just didn't realize, you consciously realized there was a process that you did that actually worked.
Well, and I'm a connector. And so I knew the process really was. I knew the headhunting firm. I had worked for the where one came from. I had worked for the law firms. So it was my relationships. And when I started to think about sales professions, I knew at this point I did want to work for myself. I refer people whenever I get a chance. I post about where I eat or stores or things that I love. I can only sell what I love. I've learned that along the way with won't go. But, so I realized that I'm constantly connecting people and what's a profession where people, it can be a mutually beneficial, relationship where someone's going to go, oh, I know someone who's great at is a great realtor. And so, and my mom was a realtor, so I grew up around it.
Okay. So it was not unfamiliar to you.
No, she started her career when I was about 14 and, was really successful. Always had a partner and it was great. So I knew what I was getting myself into it. And I had a lot of realtor friends that I now work with. So I was realistic about real estate. Yeah, realistic about real estate. Yeah, realistic about, let's be real about real estate. It's not as easy as it looks. It's not $1 million listing. It takes a lot of work and there's a lot of competition. Oh yeah, like with anything else, I mean, when they sell people on to getting into the industry, they make it all look great. But once you get into it, I think really when people start selling people, trying to recruit people, they should tell the good and the bad. Just like when they recruit people in the army, you could die. Right. By the way. Right. You're not doing anyone a favor. And having been in recruiting and professional development, I did know to ask questions. Well, how many people, who sign up, how many people last more than 6 months? So I did know to ask questions like that. Right. How much did you pay to get your career started? I sit down with a lot of people looking to go into real estate, and I said, I love what I do, but here's what you have to have, money in the bank and other things that you can't just go in there just thinking like, boom, you're gonna drop a one hit wonder deal. Right, exactly. So sounds like you came to understand that your biggest strength is being a connector, being able to connect people. At what point was it? Well, when you got into real estate or before you got into real estate, was it like a gradual process, or did it just hit you one day? Go, oh, I'm totally a connector. I have always been someone who's done a lot of things, been in a lot of organizations, whether it was like a charities and, even when I was in corporate. But yes, I've always been, I didn't really know the term was connector until somebody said, use that term. But I've just always been someone who, if I love something, I want you to go to that store or that restaurant. It's natural. It's just a natural thing for me. I think with social media, I realized that I was, I realized that I do, even more so. Yeah. Like I have a client who, I timed out on selling her house. She had a baby and I found her a nanny from another client. But being a connector, keeps me connected to my clients.
Sure.
And, you know, I want people to be happy. I'm motivated a little bit differently, and I want people to think I did a good job. So, you know, and I've learned the hard way on that one. I have one incident where I referred someone I hadn't used and didn't know enough about it. And it, you know, it wasn't a good thing. A client was not happy. And, you know, so again, I think I knew that I was a connector.
And at what point did you just own it so that it would actually, you know, give you a return on that, kind of like saying, I'm owning that piece? Because a lot of times we hear about people who are good at something, and then, you know, when you ask them, when did you know? And they say, well, I've always known. It says, well, at what point did you capitalize on knowing that, like stepping up and owning the fact that, hey, I'm a connector and I'm going to utilize that for the greatest benefit of not just me, but the people I'm here to serve? That
was sort of the catalyst for taking the leap and going into residential real estate.
Okay.
Because it had the people component, and, you know, and, you know, I do a lot for other people outside of it. It has the, like, it is a helpful, it is a helpful job. If you get the wrong real estate agent, you know, not looking out for your best interest, you know, and so it has the people component, it has the business component. And it's, you know, my business comes from referrals. I'm so connecting. It does, you know, connecting is it's a process, I guess I understand.
Yeah.
And, that was really when I took ownership of the term, and that was why I felt I would do well in real estate.
Yeah. Speaking of bad real estate, I mean, I totally agree. I mean, when I years ago, when I was looking for my first property, I thought I'd throw my a neighbor a bone. You know, she's just starting out.
Right.
I was like, great, find me a place. And you know, I had been working in the real estate industry for a little bit, but more on the financial side, you know, doing builder financing and everything. So I knew what was going on in the industry. And so I knew I was going to be a slam dunk easy deal if you could just find me the right place. So found a place, found another place, and found a place I went to escrow with. And it was in Santa Monica area, but it was on the south side of the 10,
which at that time was
right near the cemetery, that whole area right there. Okay, so I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. God, I wonder why it's so cheap. I mean, or not cheap, but like it's cheaper. Now it's different, right?
Yeah.
And then it was cool as a townhouse and everything like that. And then as I was in escrow and they were doing inspections, I went outside to take a phone call. I was walking and talking, looked out at the sidewalk, and there was like graffiti on the sidewalk. I'm like, what's happening here? And then I saw this Escalade drive by, booming music, and a guy in a do-rag looking out the window, looking at me, Mr. Suit Man. I was in my suit at the time. I'm like going, where am I right now? Am I seriously considering this? I did the inspection and everything, and then I changed my mind. I said, you know what? This is probably not where I want to be. Right. I didn't realize that. And I paid for the inspection. I did all that. But then I told the agent, my neighbor, I said, I don't think I want this place. I know I went through all this. And then she basically, because I had gone through a couple other ones, you know, prior to that, she said, well, I don't think you're ready. And she basically fired me as a client. I don't think you're ready to buy a place.
Well, I mean, again, not to speak, you know, that's not how I would work.
Right.
I probably talk more of my clients out of places than I do in, because you know, a lot of my clients become my friends. Mm-hmm. And so I look at it as a long-term relationship.
Sure.
You know, I wouldn't want to, if I knew something, I'm very specific. I will tell a client the difference between living in East Manhattan Beach and living in, you know, west of PCH, because if they're new to the area and it's something they realize, or they hear something talking about it, and they will, you know, they may love where they live, but they're going to think like, well, why didn't our realtor
tell us about it?
It's simple things. And that's, you know, that's why they're hiring a local expert. Yeah. You know, they want those bits of info. I tell clients to go sit in the Starbucks near where you're buying a home. You know, I go to the websites, but go to the grocery store where you're thinking about living. And that's the best way to get a feel for the neighborhood and the people. Sit in front of the house that you're planning on buying in the car at night and see, you know, what the noise is like if it's El Segundo or Westchester.
You know, I really appreciate you talking about all that, because this is something that I want to, I'm going to give you a question that'll help a lot of people understand truly what the role of a real estate agent is. But in case you guys are listening and you guys want to post a question or anything, because we're going to start going into the really cool, the nuggets of this particular show today with Tara, and talk about fear and everything, because that's the big piece right there. If you're on YouTube, make sure you go to the chat screen and you can post whatever question you want, and we'll see it. If you're on the Spreaker app, you can actually post a chat right there as well. If you are listening to this after the fact that it's live, you could still post in the comments. And guess what? Our team will make sure that we either respond to it, or we'll get the question over to Tara, and Tara will be able to answer as well after the fact that it's not live anymore. So here's a question that I have for you. So a lot of people think, one of my biggest pet peeves about going to networking is people lead with like the generic, I'm a real estate agent, or whatever the case may be. And that opens it up for people to have their own interpretation of what they define as a real estate agent. I suspect that most people define real estate agent is that necessary evil of the person that needs to help you find a home and has to draw out the papers and blah, 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 blah. But the reality is, based on what you're just saying just now, it's a lot more than that. Right. So tell me, what would you define a good realtor, a good real estate agent? What is that? How would you define that to someone who is either looking for a real estate agent or someone who thought they knew what a real estate agent truly does? I mean, just kind of go over kind of the breadth of all that you do that has made you a successful, sought after real estate agent and makes, you and business to be so good.
Well, and a lot of it goes to like technology. Back in the day when my mom was a realtor, you couldn't get the information off of Zillow or Redfin or Trulia or realestate.com or blah, 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 and the 10 other ones that'll follow. Her office was off the 101 freeway in Westlake Village. People had to go to a realtor to get the listings. Now that's not the case. So it's really made, I think, at least the colleagues I work with, the bar is pretty high in the South Bay area because it's competitive and we're dealing with big prices on our homes. But a good realtor is adding value. I mean, a lot of my clients, are on Redfin before they've ever met me. So it's adding value. It's providing services for your clients that a computer cannot do. I deal with a lot of millennials. A lot of times it's just breaking down the process, really explaining to people what they're getting themselves into, protecting their liability. It's usually somebody's biggest asset, at least in Southern California.
Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest investments they've ever made in their life.
And it's an extremely emotional process. So I think a good realtor doesn't push. I've written 11 offers for people and have been successful. And I have,
11 offers for one person?
Yeah, for one couple. I mean, and I would say to them, you need to go in higher, but it's not giving them the information at the end of the day. It is up to them what they feel comfortable with, and they ultimately end up in the right place. But, I don't want to push someone into a home. I think patience. A good realtor has patience. They have a lot of market knowledge. There's a lot of properties in this day and age that go off market. So you want a realtor who's constantly
scouring the streets, maybe even just kind of saying.
You want someone who is networking with other realtors at other companies. I would say a realtor who's doing it on a full-time basis. There's a lot of people that kind of dabble in it. But really, like anything, somebody you feel comfortable with and someone you feel confident with that has your best interests, who really is going to one of my clients said, look, we knew you'd chew your arm off for us. I think, the contract is the contract, and we have brokers and we have to follow rules, but somebody who's just going to really
do whatever it takes.
Yes. And tell you the things that, not the easy things, the things you may not want to hear.
Instead of making it all look
happy
and
just to get
rainbows and
I don't look at it as a doll. I look at it as I want happy clients. I never even think about the commission or whatever because I'm jinxy, and I don't. That's not what drives me. My happiness of my clients drives me, and then the money comes.
Yeah, let's go back to the value piece. When you said it meant to bring value, right? I mean, every entrepreneur. I mean, if you talk to them, one of the core concepts of what is it that they're here to do is provide value for their customers and their clients, right? When it comes to real estate agent, what are some of the specifics in terms of value that that, someone who either never worked with a real estate agent before or has had nothing but bad experiences, what kind of value proposition should they be looking for in terms of what they should, get from that's different, that's uniquely, I mean, every entrepreneur says I have to provide value, but what's uniquely different about your particular space that they should be asking or looking for?
Well, value means that we all have a different definition of value. So first, you need to find a realtor who's willing to listen to you and really understand what's valuable to you. That's
actually, most people think, oh, that's so easy. It's not.
It's really not.
It's not as easy to find.
A single male client who's an investment banker who travels nonstop. What was valuable to him, what he wrote in his review, was that I was willing to meet the painter and the carpenter. So time was his value. I have another client who has small children, and what she loved about working with me compared to other people she had worked with was that I didn't give snarky looks to her children when they were, I love kids.
People actually give snarky looks to kids.
I mean, some really, if they're running around or whatever, or stepping outside of the home with someone's child while they go in and look at it peacefully. I mean, so it's taking the time to understand what is valuable to that particular client.
So the value is valuing the client's needs.
Correct.
And just really going out of your way to truly understand what they're looking for.
Right.
So how does one even identify that, aside from just all working with you? But I mean, how does one even identify that? Let's say they're not even local and they can't, and they're like, in another state, but they're listening to this. It's like, okay, great.
Okay.
Like in Florida or something.
You would want to get to know your realtor. You need to, if you
does that mean coffee or dinner or lunch
or being really specific, you're not going to hurt our feelings. We've heard it. It's not our home, but just, I think in anything, not being afraid to ask for what you want,
not being afraid to ask for what you want.
Yeah. In a realtor.
Yeah.
Because again, it's a very competitive business and we're not mind readers.
Right.
And, if you want, and a lot of us are trained this, we do ask questions now, like, would you rather be text or emailed or phone? Those things most realtors will ask you, but really you want to give your real estate agent as much information as possible. Another lease client, her husband travels a lot. They wanted to be in a neighborhood where he felt comfortable about her walking the dog alone at night when he was out of town.
Right.
Those kinds of things that noise, or you just really want your client, you want your realtor to understand your family, what's going to work best for you. I'm going to need to look at houses, after 6 p.m., after 7 p.m. Like, I'm going to need somebody, I've had clients fly in and have to work with me all weekend. Let me know that and I'll set aside the time. It's just like anything. The more information, like any relationship, the more information you give to your realtor, the better result you're going to have. And then it's like any metric. If your realtor is not listening to that specific list of things, and I don't mean like 4 bedrooms, whatever. I mean, I'm going to be
lifestyle.
Correct. I'll be free to look at properties on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
And being accommodating.
Correct. I want to be near a park. I want to walk my kids to school every day. I need to be near an airport. All of those things. If you're working with someone who then keeps showing you homes farthest away from a park or a school or an airport, then maybe that person is not the right fit for you.
The right fit.
Right.
Okay, cool. I want to go back. I want to revisit this in a little bit more, but the Money Lab is all about talking about money.
Fun stuff.
Let's talk about more fun stuff. Because I find this stuff fascinating. I'm just being able to kind of differentiate. And that's always been the biggest challenge for a lot of people who have their own gig, independents, entrepreneurs and everything. So how do you differentiate yourself from everybody else? What I want to talk about right now is the money story.
Okay.
Because this is kind of the crux of what this particular show is all about. Because in spite of that, because I remember when you first came into my office years ago, and then you sat there and we talked about money and its role in your life, and I still remember you talking about the white knuckle experience so let's talk a little bit about your money story, because in spite of that, you still have been a creative success. So I want to make sure that people realize that just because you have anxiety around money, just because it doesn't mean you can't as you're resolving that, still move forward and become successful, because a lot of people use that as an excuse to not be successful, to not financially gain, right?
Yes.
So that's kind of what we're talking about, in spite of that fear. So let's talk about your money story. Tell me a little bit about your money story.
Well, I grew up with a very fiscally conservative, banker father who, and who had really put, God love him, but had really put the benefit, like when you're looking for a job, the salary, the benefits, the long term.
Your dad was a banker.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So your life was
so it's
money.
like,
you grew up around money.
I grew up around, yes. And he's very fiscally, almost probably too, I don't want to call him cheap, but he probably hasn't figured out how to download that podcast anyway. He was very frugal, but in the end, like watching how my parents have retired versus, I have a friend whose parents were in real estate and didn't retire as stable as mine did. It's always been something in the back of my mind, and I'm 47 years old. So I should be thinking about long-term security. And because I did try a lot of different things, and, I didn't have going into real estate. I wasn't going to real estate with a huge investment portfolio or anything like that. And it, that was probably, again, that was my biggest fear. And that holds you back, that really holds you back, because it takes up a lot of space when you're
in that fear.
Yes. Every time you pay a bill,
let's talk about that. I mean, you said that you've made leaps and bounds since we've first spoken.
You still pay bills. But.
Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit, just so people kind of get an idea of where you're at right now.
Again, like when I first, all is by learning by mistakes. When I started the first business, I was like, spending a lot on my logo and things. I didn't have the luxury going into real estate, getting my website up right away, getting coaching or going to training. So it was really just working really, really hard. And again, like wanting to have the money to pay my taxes and all that kind of stuff. And I'll be totally honest, like I'm not the best, manager of, I'm very frugal in some areas and spend probably more than I should in other areas. But, letting go of the money fear, I think for me, it just took up so much brain space. Yeah. And it was probably a distraction keeping me from.
It must have been exhausting emotionally too.
Yeah. And I'm super generous. So here you have someone who's like, an entrepreneur who's motivated, by money, but more by the people part of it. And you have someone who's like trying to be fiscally conservative. And I believe in giving and doing for others. So like, I think I said to you once, like, I do a lot for charities and I'm like, I'm going to make myself a charity. A lot of my fear is unrealistic.
Right.
It's exaggerated. It's an excuse.
Right. The question is, what is an excuse for, though?
I know.
I mean, we had to learn it somewhere.
Fear of being bigger, I guess. I mean, I think it makes you play small, first of all, the fear of it. And what I have learned, the longer I do something, the more comfortable I become in it. So, once it's a very hard profession, but once I started to see the money coming in and realized, if you didn't get this one, something else came along. And I think I've said this to you before. Someone told me in real estate, if you shake an apple tree, an orange will fall out. So, it's
that doesn't even make any sense.
Just keep working. Just keep, but it doesn't.
You should.
Apple tree, like as long as you're working, like as long as you are working your hardest and doing the things you're supposed to do, like that they would tell you in a coaching class or whatever, the success comes.
Right.
And I think once I saw a little bit of success, I realized that more would come. And, I believe that the more you are afraid of something, the more it plays a part. The more I believe in, I've read a lot of books and talked to a lot of people, and I believe being fearful is just going to create more fear. It's going to create less money and more fear. And again, success there's a different definition of success. Success to me is, making enough money to live a comfortable life, put money away, do things for other people. For some people, it's taking, a European vacation every year. That, that's not my thing, but it's just, I just wanted the brain space, that fear of it. And it was bad. It was like every time I wrote a bill and it was constantly on my mind.
Yeah. You said it would actually make you sick to the stomach.
Yeah. It would give me like anxiety. And again, maybe it was that part of my brain pushing me like, you can't do this. Or I think a lot of times I'm so afraid of failure that I would quit things before I would fail. Gotcha. I never wanted, and I never wanted to fail, but then I never got to the point where I got the confidence from either failing and then overcoming failure. And that's what real estate did. I mean, it did not come as easily as, people thought, even when they were hiring me. Oh, everyone. And I'm like, I know a lot of realtors. But staying in something that was not easy,
right, and
lasting,
right,
lasting has given me the most confidence, and it's made me less. It's made me realize that fear is just a waste of time and energy.
Yeah. So how were you able to do that and inspire? Because for a lot of people, the fear piece of, especially around money and everything, is crippling. I mean, it actually keeps people from taking it. And you probably experienced it a variety of different times and a variety of different levels. Right. By the way, the whole charity thing and tithing thing, yes. I don't care what, every modality that talks about prosperity and everything, and if they're doing it right, not one conversation does not preclude tithing, right, or charity work. And actually, they say the people who contribute more, whether it be monetarily or time or energy, actually bring in more prosperity. So, I think there's a reason why you, despite, kind of like, I don't have a big nest egg, but you've always known deep inside that you've been able to, that push come to shove, you'll be able to make the money.
Oh, for
somewhere,
sure.
Somehow,
for
right?
sure. Even when I went to go work at my friend's store, like I've always had a job, and I like to work, and I used, as you get older, a lot of my confidence as I've gotten older really has come from work. It hasn't come from like appearance or who you're dating or whatever. Right. It comes from succeeding in a tough, in a competitive industry.
Self-discovery, right?
But simultaneously, when I started real estate, I also got really involved with this organization, Walk with Sally. And I was the chairperson of the big fundraiser, which took my mind off of, took my mind off of fear of, and I was doing something good. And I was, in the beginning of real estate, when you're not getting listings and sales right away, like it was making me feel good about myself. To be helping other people, and feeling good about yourself in sales is the half of the battle. So it was kind of a combination of both. And, a lot of people in real estate or any entrepreneur should be doing things in their community to meet people. Right. And, whether can I, track a sale back to that, but I don't know, but I've been nominated twice I've lost both times, but I've been nominated twice for Citizen of the Year. And it's by my real estate board. And for me, again, like that's like a huge honor that someone even notices. And, it just makes you not be stressed out all the time.
Well, no, I mean, what you identify right there is actually a viable solution. When you are, when you're fearful, when you're getting stuck in a negative emotional state, oftentimes that means you're actually getting in your own way.
Oh, 100. And talking to people like you, I've always been very good about admitting my faults. I think it's probably one of my, and very honest.
Great. Yeah.
So, reading books, having a coffee with you, talking to people constantly, finding, I said this before we started taping, I thought I would just find the most successful realtor. It's not to emulate or have as a mentor. It's finding someone whose style is like yours.
Right.
I'm not a cold caller, but I admire the people who do cold call.
Right.
And I think they're amazing. And it's a great way to have a more stable approach to real estate. 200 calls, you get five appointments.
You can have a consistent system to it, right?
And my system is more relationship. And there's a way to count what I do, but it's finding someone. I was intimidated by the people that were successful, and I was focusing on the people that were successful, doing the things I would never want to do. Again, maybe I was looking for like a reason to quit, but and then I realized it's an overused term, but I just focused on myself, stayed in my own lane, distanced myself a little bit. And I really compete against myself,
Right.
And taking bits and it's like I think Tony Robbins always says you take bits and pieces of lots of different.
Yeah.
I've taken bits and pieces, and it's trial. It's some work, some don't, and then I tweak it, and work in progress.
Well, it's like a whole trial and error thing. Is what you're doing. You're creating miniature failures that you can learn from, so it's not so catastrophic.
Right.
And as long as you're paying attention, then you'll continue to move forward. So you don't ever experience the big catastrophic, fearful failure type of thing.
Being able to get constructive criticism, and that's hard for everyone. And, there's some days I can hear it well. And there's some days, I'm yelling at someone like I don't need to hear it. But in the end, it really is, I do ask my clients at the end, especially when I was newer, I'm like business person. If it's, I have a client who's a big executive, and, I respect her so much. And I asked her, I said, can I get some businesswoman to businesswoman, can I get some feedback from you? And she gave me honest feedback.
That's
and
good.
I took that, I've taken that into every other, and it wasn't anything like you need to know the contract better. It was, it was like, we knew you were working really hard for us. Like I was updating them too much. I was like, thinking like, oh, if I don't get back to her, I'd be like, I haven't heard back from the agent. She didn't need to know all those details because she had more faith in me than I had faith in myself at that point.
Right. Sure.
So
because you had just started out.
Right.
So what would you say then was the biggest thing that, in spite of that fear, kept you moving forward to create the success that you did? Was it because all the different activities that helped you kind of assuage the fear, or was there just a commitment or some kind of a thought process, or maybe a mantra? What is it? Because a lot of people will probably, especially with the title of the show, it's like, how do I do this in spite of fear?
Right.
How do I make the decision? How do I make the leap in spite of the fear?
Right. I mean, some of it was like, honestly, what else am I going to, I've tried a lot of different things, and I liked it. I liked what I was doing.
Okay.
And so I wanted it to work.
Okay. So if someone wasn't doing something that they like, and they have fear as well, that's more than likely that they're not going to make that
decision. But even in that case, I would go, hire a coach like you to have someone help you decide. Because, the things that we tell ourselves to hold us back in a career, they're tricky. Yeah. And it's hard to know what is fear and what is I don't like the job. And maybe a coach or a podcast or a book, something that can help you, something. But honestly, I love what I do. I just, I love what I do, but I have a little like that part of it, the lack of stability. I'm a little bit of a control freak. So not knowing what's coming next was hard for me. So instead of just quitting because of that, I've worked on it. So what did you do to work on that piece? Because that was probably one of the things that you said yourself that would have potentially stopped you in the tracks and have you go back into corporate world or something like that. Right. Well, also, I'm 47 years old, and my personal initial goal was to make more than I had made my last corporate job. And I that happened in my second and a half year. So I had personal benchmarks. I have listened to more. I tell people getting into real estate, it's half of the battle is listening to Think and Grow Rich. I mean, having a very positive mindset. Right. Most people think I'm a naturally positive person. I work very hard at it. Listening to people, asking for help, talking, going to, going to seminars and things like that.
So working on yourself.
And self-aware, you have to be honest with yourself.
Right.
And it's really, we all think we're being honest with ourselves, but not always. You have to really, really decide if you like it or not.
So it sounds like for you, it was making a decision to really honor that there, beyond investing in your business, beyond investing in marketing and going out there and doing the thing, is also really taking the time to get to know yourself. As much as you would get to know your clients. It's
the hardest thing I've ever done. And I mean, sorry if anyone's listening that I worked with, I was probably an A-, B+ employee, did everything I had to do to get the top stars or whatever in the reviews,
Gold star,
or the max bonus. But one of the regrets I had when I was in a corporate job, for anyone listening who may want to be an entrepreneur, is why didn't I use that leaving every day at when the bell rang, to dabble in real estate? Or you can start small. You don't have to walk out of your job and figure it out the hard way, but you can start. I didn't maximize that time.
Right.
I just think I didn't know if I was going to succeed, but I wanted to go down swinging. And I was willing this time. I was willing to fail.
Willing to fail.
Yeah. And at least if I failed, I could say, I'm just not good at this. This is not for me. But I had my biggest regret in a lot of the jobs and careers that I tried was that I didn't give it enough time to make a really educated decision about, did I really not like it? Or was there something about it that was uncomfortable? Or so to me, it's just kind of being really honest with yourself.
I think there's something to be said, and there's a gemstone in that one as well. So many in today's conversation. The fact that so many people, like you're saying, they don't give it their all. They give a B level effort or something like that, and it shows up and it seems to be okay, but it's untapped potential. Right. And then looking back, it's I could have maximized, even though whether or not I stayed in that industry. It's what was I holding back from, right?
Like the fear, you'll know the quote better. You can know what I'm talking about, like a fear of greatness. But it's also that if you don't take the risk to fail, you're never gonna reach your full potential. Because and again, reading silly memes about there's a one about Michael Jordan and the one I can remember off the top of my head is Vera Wang didn't start her career until she was 41. Age was a part of it, how old am I and, what I should be doing and starting all over. That had a lot to, that was part of the fear dialogue, I guess.
Yeah. Well, we tell people all the time,
forget the age.
As human beings, we actually don't become true adults till 43.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah. Okay. Because all prior to that, it's just experimentation, going on the road, trying things out. Statistic, and we could scientifically show that most people.
Well, I went to college when there was no computers. So I started my work career where, I was on a DOS computer and we are where we are now. So, and I would say,
calculators.
And not comparing yourself. That was a big problem for me, not comparing yourself to others. Really, that also takes up a lot of energy. And again, all these little negative things I was doing was just, again, to me, if you put fear and you put all the things that fear meant and things that were feeding fear, that would be it. Yeah. Really just, don't compare. It's don't compare the first chapter to the end, or there's some other. I like memes.
Yeah.
Your day 1 to somebody else's day 20, or year 20, your year 1 to someone else.
So what are these memes or memes or however you want to pronounce it? Cliche.
Yeah. I love them.
I know. When did those actually start to kind of sink in?
Because I started to understand what they meant.
Yeah. When did that start?
I think it's the old when the student is ready.
When the student is ready, totally
Yoda,
right.
Was it Yoda or what? Yoda, like Yoda.
Right.
But I think that's really it. I was reading all these books for years, but I wasn't understanding them. And I was it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't work being positive. Well, yeah, it does. And I learned that one when I was having a bad week and kept going, I'm having a bad week.
You know what I think it is? I think it started to work when you started to get out of your own way. Remember that one part where you just said, okay, yeah, I'm just going to own this.
No, I'm my own biggest enemy in a lot of things. So it's being very conscious of that.
Right. Well, believe it or not, we've only got 5 minutes left.
Oh no!
I know, right?
Shocker.
So we probably would like to have you back on the show talking about a different topic.
Yes.
So this is
we don't have to talk about real estate next time. I'd be happy to.
No. But what I want to do is talk about really quickly, give you an opportunity to let people know how they can reach out to you, because you found a home in Vista Sotheby's,
yes,
and from what I understand, which you absolutely love, out of all the places you've been in thus far. And
in real estate, I was only at one other place, but I love.
But you grew up around it, and you've seen other.
That company I loved, and it's no longer. But what I love about my current situation is it's structured. I went to a conference, and it was just like going to a conference I used to go to, and it. it's entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur within an organization that provides structure and helps me with marketing and things like that. So it's a perfect fit for me.
Yeah, which is huge. I mean, a lot of people, one of the biggest challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs is the lack of structure.
Right.
I know for me, if I didn't have team members around to help me maintain structure, I'd be all over the place.
Right. Right. And actually, that was one of the positive things that I learned about myself, is that I work harder with myself as the boss. I'm the worst boss I've ever had. I'm the hardest boss I've ever had.
So hard on yourself. You need to fear me.
Like, you should hear the conversations in my head. Get up off that couch.
Cool. So how can people connect with you? I mean, now they've got a chance to kind of get just a sliver of what you're all about. How do they connect with you if they really want to work with you or pick your brain or just kind of connect with you? Network with
if you have career advice on anything, or you're young and you want me to tell you all the mistakes not to make, you can reach me at Tara. You can reach me. It's my work email, but it doesn't have to be about real estate.
Right.
Tara, Tara .Klien, Klein at Vista, VISTASIR.com. Basically Tara.Klien at VistaSIR.com.
Sir.
I know it's a little bit, so it stands for Sotheby's International.
Sotheby's International.
Yeah,
and we'll put it in the comments and everything.
Put it in the comments, and again, if you're looking to get into real estate, if you're in the, I pretty much do West LA to Palos Verdes, and you would like, again, I'm a marathon salesperson. So if think you might be ready to buy a house in a year from now, but you'd like someone to have coffee with you and sit down and explain.
And have someone that will chew her arm off for you.
Basically, yes. If you're a first-time buyer, I've worked with a lot of first-time buyers, and you just need someone to explain the steps.
Yeah.
You may not buy a house from me, but you may refer me to your next door neighbor.
Yeah. Or if you just want to network with someone who is amazing, has a great journey.
I'm very good at networking, and I can help
connect you. Right.
I can help people figure out how to do it.
Yeah. And if you're a charity junkie, then you can also reach out.
I can also point you in that direction.
It's such a big piece to prosperity, though.
Yes,
I mean, you look at people who are the most prosperous in the world, you'll know, and they're consistently prosperous. You'll notice they're very involved. I'm not involved with Walk and Sally, but I volunteer a lot in the Torrance Chamber of Commerce. There's just all these different things. And quite frankly, I need to do more of that. After speaking to you, and I'm inspired. Oh my gosh. I got to do more. But yeah, definitely reach out to Tara. I mean, she's got obviously a wealth of knowledge and experience.
Lots of different careers.
And she can actually relate to probably a lot of the different fears, if not more so, for some of you out there who are just thinking about, who are just made the leap or have been in it for a while, and the fear is rearing its ugly head or something like that. Definitely, reach out to Tara, sit down with her, because she's really cool to chit chat with, and very, even
block out 3 hours of your day. No, just kidding. I'm totally
right,
kidding.
because you guys will never run out of things to talk about. So we'll definitely have you back on the show. Probably talk about a different topic, because there's so many different. I have a sneaking suspicion there's probably other things under there that we have yet to uncover. Right. That'll be valuable for people. But definitely reach out, and then we'll talk to her. So thank you so much, Tara, for coming.
Thank you so much. Any amount of time, like I said, with you picking my brain, you always make me think about things that I haven't thought about.
Yeah. So appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Anytime. So let's definitely do this again. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get ready to sign off. That's our show for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Again, if you found this episode to be valuable and know of someone else who could benefit from this, then share it. And if you're a fan, another way to pay it forward is to rate and review us on iTunes, Spreaker, and like the episode on Google Live. Honestly, that's one of the best way to reach more people. And that's a wrap. Take this week to apply the knowledge from today. Have an amazing week, and we'll catch you next week on the Money Lab live podcast from the Six Figure Academy.
Oh, geez.
Bye. We forgot to turn it off. Bye.
Is it off?